Craig, let's start with the SEC title game, Texas and Georgia this weekend, and it's a rematch, and Georgia really beat them handily when they played them before. It was by and large the worst game of Texas' season, and obviously because it's their only loss, but even then, like, it wasn't, they had one little spot where it kind of got close, but it really was Georgia, and that was Georgia's best win and Texas's worst loss. These are two different teams, though, now. They've been through a lot. What do you expect to see differently this week?
Man, I think that this is obviously a very fun rematch to get into. I think Texas is going to have a bit more of a say in things than they did the last time around. I feel like that game sort of started to get away from them. I don't think they're going to be as overwhelmed. Does that make sense? I feel like they got a little bit overwhelmed in that first game and maybe got some punches thrown their way that they didn't or weren't quite equipped, ready to respond with. And then there's, the biggest thing I expect is not a whole kerfluffle over trash on the field, interrupting the flow of the game and flipping the entire feel of that game in a moment's notice. I think that's going to be something that's hopefully absent from this game so that we can just see these two teams square up, period. No, hey, there was this or there was that. And that's why I still think they got that call right in the end, because you would have had this huge asterisk next to that game if that didn't work out the way that it did the last time around. But that's the one thing I expect to definitely be different. And I think you got to get some better quarterback play if you're Georgia. I think that's one thing. I don't think you were all that impressed by what you saw in that first go-round. And if you're Texas, I think you expect a lot more out of your offense at this point. I think with Trey Wisner emerging the way that he has and just the way that Quinn Ewers has kind of gotten up for the big game during his career, I think he's been pretty successful in the bigger games. And I know that he's been a headache at times over the past few weeks where he can do something brilliant, but he also puts you in positions where you're at risk of losing. He makes a dumb decision that can kind of flip the momentum. I think Quinn Ewers will be sharp in this game. I think Texas is going to be geared up and full of confidence. I think Georgia will be as well, and I just expect a lot less nonsense and a bit more of a polished product on both ends. They know who they are a lot more now than they did the last time these two teams played.
Yeah,
they played a bunch of games. They've been through the ringer. They've seen each other. I don't think they're either drastically different, but I do think Trey Wisner is a big difference from the first go-around, for example. And there's other versions of that throughout both of these teams. So, yeah, man, this is going to be a slobber knocker. I cannot wait for this game.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on, not falling behind like they did before.
Yes, very much so.
And, getting into the, like you said, they got caught so
you're down 23-0 at halftime.
Yeah, they're down 23-0.
I don't expect that this time around.
Yeah, I mean, if it was like a prize fight, they got knocked down in the first round and then just never regained their footing, even though they kept in it until the end. They just took that one big shot and then never really gained their footing. Even though they got a couple in, it just really didn't work out for them. How does the probably mostly Georgia atmosphere affect it? Since it's in their backyard and not Texas's backyard. And I wonder how many SEC title games they play. Texas winds up playing in Atlanta over the first decade of them being there to where they start floating out.
Houston's really nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're already looking at Arlington for a title game at some point. I'm sure that's going to be the thing about the SEC now is with the markets that you have. You had Atlanta already. You had New Orleans already. You had Nashville, right? I mean, you can throw in, I guess, Jacksonville. I know that's not the same. You know what I'm saying, though? You have these markets that are yours. And so I think now, Dallas and Houston are wide open to you as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's inevitable. I also would not expect Georgia, despite being up at halftime the way that they were, I don't expect that'll be the case. I don't expect that we'll have, again, the big issue with the trash on the field and all that came with that. I also don't expect Carson Beck will necessarily throw 3 interceptions right there. I mean, it was pretty amazing they had the lead that they had with the way that he played. So I think he's got to be much, much better. But against this Texas defense, that's going to be a lot easier said than done. Georgia was unable to really be super effective in that game. Their defense really held them in there. So I'm expecting Georgia maybe be a little bit more polished this go-around, not turn the ball over as much. But I don't know, with this Texas defense and with as erratic as Carson Beck can be, then maybe he still does turn the ball over that many times. I don't know. He's very up and down.
He's on a streak right now.
He is.
Up.
He is.
I mean, yeah.
So that's why I think it's probably not going to be a situation where you're throwing for less than 200 yards and no touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I would expect a better performance from him in this game with the second crack at the Longhorns defense.
Yeah, absolutely.